In this video, we're going to be talking about how to find the volume of spheres and hemispheres. A sphere is a rounded 3D shape, and all the points on the surface of the sphere are equidistant from the center. And a hemisphere is just half of a sphere. The volume formulas, volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. And since hemisphere is half of that, basically, if a hemisphere is half of a sphere, we have halved this coefficient. So instead of 4/3, it's 2/3 pi r cubed, r standing for our radius. So let's look at some sample questions and let's grab our calculators to help us. All right, number 1, find the volume of the sphere in terms of pi. So here's our formula, 4/3 pi r cubed. Our radius is clearly given to us as 6. And since we're doing this in terms of pi, we are not going to put pi in the calculator. We're just going to put everything else. So 4/3, 6 to the 3rd power, and I get 288. So the way we're going to format our answer is 288 pi, since that's in terms of pi, and our units for volume are always cubed, so centimeters cubed. Number 2, we are now given a hemisphere. So I'm going to adjust the formula, and I'm going to use 2/3 instead. And this time we are asked to round this. So that means that after I plug 4 in, and I go to my calculator and I start typing this in, I am going to put pi in my calculator. And we're going to round to the nearest cubic inch, which is 134. One little error to watch out for is other volume formulas have the radius squared, such as when you find the volume of a cylinder. But for a sphere, that radius is cubed, so just double check your exponents are 3. All right, let's look at some more. 3, find the volume of a sphere with a radius of 7 in terms of pi. You're going to see that spheres are the most repetitive out of everything. So I'm plugging 7 in. And in terms of pi means pi does not go into my calculator. And you notice that I got a fraction when I did this. So I got 4/3, 7 to the 3rd power. So I have a couple of options. So I could change that to a fraction. The way I did that was I did math and then choice 1. That will convert my answer to a fraction. Or since that 3 is repeating, you could put the bar over it to show that it's repeating. I'm going to use the fraction route. So I'm going to say 1372 over 3 pi and then inches cubed. Number 4 is slightly different because we are given the length of the diameter. So the first thing we're going to do is take 5.5, divide it by 2, and now I know my radius is 2.75. And this one we are going to round. Anytime you see that word nearest, that means pi is going into your calculator and you will be rounding your answer. So 4/3 pi, 2.75 cubed, and to the nearest cubic inch, this gives me 87 as my answer. Number 5, a hemisphere in terms of pi. We are going to substitute in 12 for the radius, and in my calculator, I will not be putting pi. Okay, so that's the main thing to watch out for. Is it in terms of pi or is it rounded? So I got 1,152. We put pi back in our answer. Units are always cubes for volume. All right, 6 looks a little different now though. So 6 says circle O has a diameter of 4 inches. The circle is continuously rotated about its diameter. Find the volume of the solid form to the nearest cubic inch. All right, so let's try and draw this out. So we have a circle. Okay, if it says circle O, that means that O is the center. And we know the diameter is 4. You could choose to draw the diameter vertically if you want or diagonally, it doesn't matter. So if the diameter is 4, by the way, that means that our radius is 2. So think about the formula, we're going to need the radius. All right, if we're rotating about the diameter, basically what that means is if I look at, like, let's say this point up here, think about it as a reflection for a second, it's going to end up over here. and this point at the bottom is going to land on the point on the top, and so on. It's just going to map back onto itself. But what's going to happen, since we are rotating it, it's hard to draw it out here, but this is going to become three-dimensional, and it's going to create a sphere. So taking a circle, rotating it continuously about its diameter will give you a sphere. All right, so now I know that I'm going to be using the sphere formula. I know my radius is 2 because I've already halved the diameter. And I'm looking to the nearest cubic inch. Typing that in, and I have 34 inches cubed. Number 7, a sphere has a volume of 121.5 pi centimeters cubed. Find the radius in centimeters. Okay, so this looks a little bit different because we are given the volume and our job is to figure out what the radius is. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm going ahead and substituting in the volume. When you're given the volume in terms of pi, that's going to make things a little bit easier because the pi's will end up canceling out on both sides. And what that really means is you're dividing by pi on both sides and you'll just get 1. So I like to cross them off to begin with. So let's look at it like this. 121.5 equals 4/3 r cubed. We need to solve for r and isolate r. So I'm going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal of the fraction that we have. So in this case, 3/4. So I have 3/4 times 121.5. And I have 91.125 is equal to r cubed. Now I need to take the cube root of this. So to find the cube root, I'm going to hit the math button and then choice 4. And I get that 4.5, in this case centimeters, is the radius of the sphere. If we wanted to check our work on a problem like this, take 4.5, plug it in for the radius here, and you'll see that you'll get that initial area that you were given, or the volume you were given. All right, last problem here. A hemisphere has a volume of 18 pi. Find the radius. So very similar to that last problem. The only difference is we have a hemisphere instead of a sphere. So I'm going to cross off the pi's, and at the same time I'm going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal. All right, so I have 3/2 times 18, so 27 over here. 2/3 and 3/2 give me 1, so that goes away. So 27 equals r cubed. I'm going to take the cube root of both sides. So again, your cube root button, you hit the math button and then choice 4. And I get 3 inches as my radius. Hopefully this video helped you understand how to work with the volume of spheres and hemispheres.